morning. You're listening to Insurance Matchmaking, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance. And now, sharing his knowledge, here's your host, Matt Libby.
Welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. If you listened recently, you heard Teresa Sheppard on my show. This may be the following week, but sometimes we record these ahead and back them up and save them as a backup for times when I can't be here. Like I've got a wedding to go to in June, so there's going to be a week there that I'm not. In fact, actually probably going to be might even be 2 weeks because it's or then we're traveling to and from we're going to take our camper, go to the wedding in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, go to San Antonio, do a little touristy stuff before the wedding. But when you're pulling a trailer, and you know how far away Texas is, it takes a little bit longer.
Well, thanks for having me, and that sounds like big fun. I hope somewhere on your socials you're going to be sharing some photos.
Yeah. So anyway, in the previous show, we talked about how we met, and Teresa shared the fact that I've been able to help her parents with some things, and she talked about this food trailer that she's doing as a ministry. She's always been ministry focused. We talked about when we first met. Her niche was working with churches and nonprofits and helping them with their insurance for their liability and their fire insurance and that sort of thing. And she has since sold her agency. Like I said, it's still focusing on the ministry she's done. And part of that is she's written a book. So let's talk about your book, and then we'll. You weren't ready to talk about that?
Talk about that. No, we do have. Yeah. Well, so there's several books. The one that I gifted Matt with today is called "It's All About Faith," and it is a compilation. So it's just a collection of people's stories. And
okay.
And
yeah.
I think Matt would agree with me that working in sales, working in the insurance industry, we collect a lot of stories. And part of those stories help you have empathy and heart for the people that you work with and that you work for. And I consider if I'm somebody's agent, I work for them. And so when I was collecting those stories, it really gave me this heart and this passion for people, which even helped me on the insurance side of things, because you get a feel for what is their daily life like, what is their world, and they become more to you than just this number on your book,
right?
And so that it's a compilation. It is their stories of faith. There's a story in there from a lady who instantly quit smoking because she testified that she would. It's a good thing, and it's a lot about health and life and love and all the things that the human heart just is drawn to.
Right.
And I think that getting to know us is part of what makes people want to do business with us. And because it's not the companies we represent, even though they want them to be good. It's the quality of the human that they think we are.
Yeah.
And when you're matchmaking for insurance, I mean, I think your logo probably means it in a way that your clients are matching to you, but I see that the same with our referrals.
Right.
If I could make somebody to a good referral, that's going to make the people that I referred for that product or that service love me more because they know I care about them.
Well, and that's part of the thing too. In the name of the show, Insurance Matchmaking, and that's why I like to have other insurance agents on, or not just other insurance, but so that I can help match people to you. I like to get people who are doing a nonprofit, and that's why I've even asked people, it's like, come and share about a nonprofit you're passionate about. And I always say, and especially if it's in the veteran community, being a veteran myself, I like to get people who do veteran things. And if you've listened to my past shows, you'll meet some of those, or you go to insurancematchmaking.com, and if you go to insurancematchmaking.com, and the links there for the YouTubes of the recorded of these past shows. The other thing, or you can go to YouTube. If you go to youtube.com at Insurance Matchmaking, there's my videos there. Don't have a lot of views on them, but it's one of those things. It takes time to build up a listenership, and
it does. But I love your concept, and I want more people to know about it, because it really is. It's us looking out for the best of the people that we love,
right?
And that's what my books are about too. It's stories. It's sharing things about life. And so it's all about faith. That's Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all those places. But it really is just people's stories of faith. I was actually ashamed of this book. It was the very first one that I wrote. I wrote it in 2005, I think, originally. Kind of forgot about it. It wasn't edited. The grammar was bad. We live in this cult of perfectionism in this world, and it was not that. And I didn't know how to write a book when the first one came out, and so it was embarrassing once that it came out. And I think a lot of times the enemy does that with our ministries, even with our work. We don't want to say, hey, I'm an insurance agent, or hey, I'm
right.
Because there's this little.
We're just one step above used car salesman,
Well,
which I
yeah.
used to be one of those too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I could tell you a good story about a used car salesman that was life-changing for me, that was so helpful. But anyway, because you can be helpful no matter what your title is.
Yeah.
We're not defined by our titles. But anyhow, straight to this book. So when COVID hit, or right before COVID hit, my former sister-in-law called me up, and she said, can I get another copy of your book? And I've written several since then. And she said, I work at the jail, and these women in prison, they love your book. And I said, okay, that's
Because it's not perfect.
Well, I didn't know which book she meant.
Yeah.
I'd forgot about it. I said, which one are you talking about? And she's like, you got more than one?
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about it, and we figured out which one it was. I said, oh, no, I can't believe they read that. She's like, read it. They love it. They can feel the voice of the people that's talking.
Yeah.
They can identify with their stories.
Because it wasn't polished.
Yeah, and some of them have been through similar things. And so God kind of knocked me over side of the head with that one, kind of like, see there? So we redid it, we re-released it, and we didn't take out their stories. We tried to leave it in the voice of the person who gave the story. So if that book makes money, and usually the book projects don't. If you ever want to be an author, do it for your passion. It's not a profitable endeavor for the most part. But that money will go back to nonprofit, to the church world, because that's what that book was promised for. And most of those are not my stories.
Uh-huh.
So, but it was really exciting, and it was cool to hear that women in prison were being inspired by something that I was allowed to help to create, to type, to make a real thing from just a dream. It was incredible.
Now, you mentioned you have written several books. Do you do like any speaking tours and then have a merch table to maybe sell some of your books there? Is that something you've done? Or
that is something I want to do.
Okay.
When I owned the agency, I didn't have time. I was still, my son was still growing up, and I was working a lot of hours, and you know how that is. And I don't think people realize how much salespeople really work and how much time you put into the craft of taking care of them. But the time just wasn't available. Yeah. And I really had to dedicate to being a mother first. But my son's grown now. He's 22. So I am free to do that. I love public speaking. I'm one of those random people that's not terrified of it. Yeah. It's a lot of fun to do. I am open to speaking, to traveling. I'm on the fence about the merch table. I tend to love to give things away, so we'll see how that goes. But you're right. Nobody's going to read the books if I don't have them readily available. So definitely something that may be coming down the line.
Okay. Well, and again, sometimes, you can have the merch table, not have it as a money-making thing, but just kind of, cover the costs, because if even as author copies, you're going to pay, you still have to pay for your copies of your book, so it's like you could have them and they're just kind of replenishing your supplies, and in that way they get spread out. I'm trying to think, there was something several years ago. I'm trying to remember how they were doing it. It may even been somebody came to NTI, but they were collecting books, and it seems like it was almost like the juvenile books, like Nancy Drew, and they would go, go to yard sales because people are clearing it out, and you could get these used books, or you go to I think what they did is they'd go to the used bookstore, and a lot of times they would have that bin that stuff they're not going to put on the shelf, but taking the books that are easy reading, because one of the reasons a lot of people are in jail is because they didn't succeed in school, so they're not succeeding in the business world. And it gives them something that, Well, that's true. And then they can, and they're comfortable reading it because it's not over their head. Like, I know sometimes they do things like with comic books, too.
True. And even if you are really well versed academically, you may not have the attention span for a long, complicated book, or the time. So all of my books are easy to read. They're very simple. Most of them, the average person they're on an 8th grade level or less, could sit down and read them in less than an hour. It takes me usually about 30 to 45 minutes to read one of my books, but I'm pretty quick with reading. It's one of my passions. Yeah. But yeah, my books are all very simple, very quick, and very easy to read, and I think that's important right now.
Yeah. And you mentioned that my wife and I were just talking about it last night, like, I read slow. She's like, you read every word. In my family, we'll joke because when I read, my lips move. So that's why I read at a speaking rate versus like speed reading. Now I can scan over stuff. I've done very, very well, like on tests. Like, you got to go back. What was the key thing of this paragraph, or what? And you go back and you scan that paragraph real quick and find your answer and then go on to the next question. I can do that. Like some people think, oh, well, I can't do well on a test because they read and then they can't answer the question and they got to go to the next one. And you don't really reread it because now you're looking for key words when you're scanning it. So your reading comprehension may not be exactly. But, if you really want to test reading comprehensions, you have somebody read a paragraph, and then you take the paragraph away, and then ask them questions.
So that's good, but I think that both are a gift from God. People who read slow and fast and all things in between. Because somebody like you who's reading slower, that's probably why you're very good at health insurance, because it's you have to be overly analytical.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I think
and the details matter. Every word matters.
I don't understand how people can do an appointment in 30 minutes. It takes me that long just to do the application once we've decided it. And this might scare people off, but it's also, I will put the time in for you. I've had appointments take over 3 hours.
But that's why you do it right and you do it well.
Yeah.
And someone who is a little bit ADD, who they're going super fast, they're not gifted at the work you do, and they're probably going to miss something that's important to that person.
Yeah, when it comes to books, I like the size of this book because if a book is more than 2 inches thick, I generally won't even pick it up. Especially now, I've gotten to the point. Now, one thing I have done, and people look at me like that's kind of weird when I mentioned it, was like Kindle, and you can do a Kindle on your iPad. And there's 2 reasons I like it. One is it's I have it for other things, but like when you're on I get a lot of reading usually like when I'm on a plane because there's not much else to do. Mm-hmm. And then when we went on our first cruise, I did a lot of reading, and they're like, "Why?" I was like, "Well, I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise. You have the sea day. Now my wife went and did all kinds of craft stuff on because there's all kinds of things to do on a cruise ship. It's a lot of fun. But we got a cabin with a balcony. And it was a Caribbean cruise into April, so it was nice and warm out. The sun's out, and I could go sit out on the balcony and read my book because there was nothing to see but water at that point. It's like there were things I could have done but I didn't really feel like doing those, so it gave me something to do. And so I read the book, and had and like I had like a little series, and so I like a trilogy, and so I could,
like peace.
so I could read one, and then I'm reading the next one, and so that helped me kill that time. So that's when I do most of the other reason why I like having it on my iPad is I don't have to have the right light over my shoulder because it's backlit, so it doesn't matter if I'm sitting in the dark or whatever. I can read. Now, of course, that could be disturbing somebody, but it should be less disturbing than having a lamp. like if you're reading in bed.
Yeah,
which I used to do a lot of, and I don't do it much. So, but believe it or not, we're hitting that first 14-minute break here. So we'll have a couple commercials, and then we'll be right back.
Looking to spruce up your home without breaking the bank? Visit Habitat Restore for incredible deals on furniture, appliances, home decor, and more. Plus, when you shop at Habitat Restore, you're not just getting great deals, you're also supporting your local community. Are you looking to make a meaningful impact? Consider donating to Habitat Restore. Your generosity can make a world of difference. Habitat Restore, open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and located at 560 South Jefferson Avenue in Cookeville.
Hey there, Tennessee residents. Before you grab that shovel and start your next big project, here's a crucial tip. Know what's below before you dig. That's right, utilities can be buried just inches beneath the surface, and hitting them could lead to outages, property damage, or even injury. Just call 811 before breaking ground, and they'll mark the location of underground utilities, keeping you safe and your project on track. Remember to call before you dig. Brought to you by Twin Lakes.
And now, back to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby Insurance.
Welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking, here with my guest, Teresa Sheppard, and with her Gathered Ministries. Gathered.us is the website, it's not .com. I had somebody else that had been on the show that we had to stress that the website was not .com. We were just talking about what we've done, work-wise and ministry-wise. And you mentioned, it made me think about, and we met, I probably still was doing some yards. I was doing some, mowing some yards as a side job when I lived in Oak Ridge, until the insurance business just got too busy for me to try to keep that up. But I don't know if it was, something we'd read, something we'd heard. It was the sermon church, but, talking about, making your job your ministry, doing your job as a ministry. And I was kind of like, I don't see how I can do that. And my wife goes, what do you think you're doing? You got all your little old ladies that you mow their yard.
Right, you take care of them.
And you're, it's a ministry for the, to them that, that you do it. This is one of the things that's baffled me. I don't know whether it's just the way I was raised or 20 years in the military. But amazing thing was one of my biggest claim to fame with my lawn mowing business, I showed up when I said I was going to.
Oh, that's a huge thing.
I'm just like, who doesn't? It's just like
most
I mean, I
people.
do that. I have people that make an appointment, and they don't show, and then they reschedule, and it's like, do you realize I've set aside, an hour or 2 hours to meet with you, and when you don't show or you reschedule at the last minute, now I've got to take another block that maybe I could have been helping somebody else. And this time of year, it's not a big deal, But when we're in that enrollment season, I do kind of stress on it, and it's like, I've irritated some people because I called it the road warrior, and part of why I did Kentucky. I mean, I would drive and spend the night in Lexington and Louisville and run appointments all day in that area. And I don't do that anymore. I've actually worked with some of those people that I met 6 and 7 years ago that I helped this year, but I did it all over the phone. And that's one of the things, actually, COVID kind of helped our business in that extent. It made a lot of things more easier to do, over the phone online, which also opens up more for fraud. But it was that if you book that time during open enrollment, you need to keep that time, or give us plenty of notice when
Right.
you need to switch.
So one way that you can be in ministry is by respecting the people that you're working with and valuing them and their time. And I call what you're describing marketplace ministry, because it is not that you're preaching to somebody, but it is that you are bringing love to them.
Yeah.
And you may be bringing love by doing what's best for them and taking care of their needs and putting them first.
Yeah.
And so I like to call that marketplace ministry. And when you set out to do something, people are often, they're going to think you're crazy or that you're not good enough, or that, and you may think that yourself, or what if people laugh at you? And they're going to.
Yeah.
They told Beethoven that his work was incomprehensible and confusing. And I think most people, if you're younger, if you're a teenager, you might not know who that is, but most of the adults here know who that is. and I think that's true for a lot of famous people and a lot of well-known people, is they sought out to fulfill their ministry or their dream or their passion, and somebody else told them it was stupid. Mm-hmm. So whether, your dream is to be the best door opener at whatever place you're hosting,
yeah,
or from your home because you're working remotely and you have to talk to people on the phone, or maybe you're not consumer facing and you just work within your own team of people, whatever that is, you can make that your ministry to do it well, to like you said with the Boy Scout thing, leave it better than you found it. Mm-hmm. Even simple things, Matt, like I have this, it irritates me so much if I see somebody who's able-bodied and young and healthy not put their shopping cart back.
Yeah.
It only takes an extra 30 seconds. Please put it away. Yeah. Or taking a parking spot from someone who maybe is not technically handicapped but might have a harder time than you getting in and out of the place.
Yeah. I tell the story. I say, I used to, you mentioned, I'd go to church and park in the back of the parking lot, to leave those spots up closer to the door for the older people that, walking in can be a challenge. It's like, today I are one. It's so weird that I start, I feel guilty when I take those spots. And actually last night we had a meeting in, surprisingly, there was a lot of handicap spots open. And it's the building that our church has a separate service in. They call it traditional. It's more, They may do some contemporary stuff, but do hymns and stuff. They have a band, but they're singing older songs, and it's the older crowd that's usually there. So we talk about the old people at the other service, and so that's who's usually there. So it's like you come there running a little bit late, you aren't finding a handicap spot. They're taking.
Yeah, it's amazing how things like that work. But I would encourage people to know that church is not dead. There's still some good ones out there. Don't give up on them. Be part of the reason somebody wants to go. Go yourself, and work is there. The laborers are short. Now is the time for ministry, for adventures, for fulfilling your purpose. So step out and do it. And if you want to connect, gathered.us. I would love to help learn about your journey and help to connect you. And I love to see Matt doing it through his insurance and through this radio show. This is so much fun, Matt.
Yeah, it is.
You
may have to come back.
Yeah, I like this. This is a lot of fun. But for all of you, with my books and with even going to school for ministry, I have a almost master's degree in ministry.
Okay.
It's not a God thing, though. It's been a lot of fun. So when you step out in your purpose, your calling, your passion, whatever it is, you're going to have fun. That's going to be a source of joy for you.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you mentioned about, being that best door opener, a lot of the churches are doing the thing, they got the T-shirts. It's like, it's not exclusive to, you may think it's just your church, but the one, you got a T-shirt that says you belong here. There's other churches that use that same thing. Yeah. But it's like, in some churches, they're like, we prop the doors open because we want the doors open and welcome you. Well, I was involved at City Hills in Knoxville.
My son goes there.
Okay. And if you were on the welcoming team or you were on the doors weren't propped open. The philosophy was, we open the door for you. So we were very conscious of making sure we're always opening the door. And we open it for that person or that family. And we close the door. Which also is very efficient, more efficient, with the heating and air conditioning. But it
makes them feel special.
But it's when anybody holds the door for you, you go, oh, thanks. It happened like last night. My wife's like, I thought you were going to get the doors, and I'm trying to get there, because there was a couple ahead of us, and he, held the door. But it was like I wasn't getting there quick enough to catch just catch the door behind the people that are in front of us. But you set that
expectation that you're going to hold the door for people, and so she thought you were going to do it.
Well, I was going to. I just hadn't got there yet.
But she's learned that about you, and that's good. That people expect that level of care from you, and we should be door openers, and we should be cheerleaders. If you're working towards your passion and your dream, but you're not quite there yet, maybe you haven't got to Matt's stage where you can start your own insurance agency, or you can start your lawnmower business, or whatever it is you want to do, or write the book, or the whatever it is. You can cheer for the guy next to you. And even if you are doing your thing, you can cheer for the other people. Mm-hmm. It is not you have to win. We can all win.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things. I was listening to a podcast here just, last day or two. Actually, I guess it was this weekend. My staff thinks I'm crazy, but it's like when I go out for a morning walk, or I'm mowing the lawn, or working in the garden, a lot of times it's YouTube's, but I'm listening to them as a podcast. So it's like I don't put on music to go work out or whatever. I listen to a podcast because I won't take the time, and I'm not going to take other time to watch those. Or if I'm taking the time to watch TV, it's because I want to relax and veg and and binge watch TV, TV show.
Did I tell you about our podcast we have coming out?
Okay.
So Christy Cooper and I, one of my partners, I mentioned her in the last show. We have a podcast, and you're going to love this title. It's called Porch Swing Talking with Y'all.
With y'all.
And the logo is featured around this talking with the porch swing, because when I grew up, the porch swing was so fundamental, and my grandmother would sit out there, and everybody in the community, they'd come visit her. She would laugh. The family would be there. And that's where you learned a lot of things. I got inspired to play basketball, to not use tobacco products. I mean, there was so many things that you go talk about on the porch swing. Yeah. So our podcast is really going to be featured around things that you would sit around with a family member or somebody that was wise and just talk about whatever you talk about on a porch swing.
So have you launched that, or it's in process?
It's going to launch by May, so it should coincide with the food trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, so the whole ministry as a whole is really going to be wide open come May.
Oh, I was listening to the podcast, and they were talking about the other insurance agents getting together. We're competitive. We compete with each other. Another health insurance agent, another, or Medicare specialist health insurance agent, we compete. But I get so much value from the Facebook group of other agents. And some of it, too, is real easy to say, I'll give you tips because you're not in my state. Because most of us, even those that do work in some things, some call a lot of leads in other states to see if they can help them switch their Medicare supplement to get a better rate. Some specialize in that. Mine is more of, as we talked about, more of the service of the, and I help my ACA clients transition to Medicare, or just, in working with those. But they have these conferences, and everybody's like, well, why are you going to go there? Your competition's there. They're going to try. So this group's going to try to recruit you, or they're going to try to. And it's like, no, it's like we are better together. We build on each other, and in the term. hear it a lot like in the network marketing realm, but also in the insurance realm. It's like, oh, I'm going to steal that. I mean, I stole the idea of the matchbook. I didn't originally come up with the idea of a matchbook. It was like somebody else was doing it. I'm like, hey, I think I can use that.
Absolutely. Continue to lift each other up. That's great.
So, all right. So again, I know you kind of covered, but before we run out of time, how to contact you, how people can maybe get involved. The radio show here it's local, but with YouTube and that, it can get a larger region. So.
Yes, it's great. Gathered.us, Gathered, gathered.us. All the details will be there. The food truck will launch in May. The food and the beverages are free to the consumer, no matter who you are. The idea is that love is kind and kindness is free. And the podcast, all of the things that we're going to be doing will be available at gathered.us. We want to hear from you, and we want to know your stories.
All right. So, as always, Insurance Matchmaking. Just kind of, again, putting out there, we've only been a little over a month in our new location on South Jefferson next to the Domino's. They're getting a lot more business from me than they used to. Actually, it's funny that, again, we've mentioned before, we were just a couple doors down from a Domino's before, but it was a couple buildings away. But now we're on the same strip mall, so I have gotten food from them a little more often. But South Jefferson, a lot of road construction, but we're in the same strip mall with the Domino's, and we got our sign put up first of this week, and so there's a big sign on the building now, so when you're driving by, you can go, oh, that's where Matt's office is.
Yes, well, congratulations, Matt, and thank you for having me out today.
All right, this has been fun. Again, I mentioned, if you can go to the website, if you got a question for the show or a suggestion for somebody you think would be a great guest for my show, put that in there, or send them to that website and they can put in their information and say, Matt, can I be on your show? And we'll get you there. One of the things I use currently using a program called Calendly, which helps you get on the calendar. And that Teresa was able to figure out a date that worked for her, and then when she had to cancel and reschedule, she was able to do that. And we didn't have to play phone tag and email tag. It was just we picked a time, and that was it. And it looks like we're out of time. So until next time, see you on the radio.
You've been listening to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance.